Check. How we doing? Yep, sounds about right. Welcome, folks, to the second episode of the Decompression Chamber. Alright, I'm gonna run that again. Anyway, welcome to Season 3, Episode 2 of the Decompression Chamber. I'm your host, Mario. Thank you very much for being here with me. And I'm going to start with an opening quote with a filmmaker whose name is spelled Jiazhangjke. Sorry. I think they're Chinese. I've just pulled this quote off Instagram, and I'm going to butcher their name, but I think it's something like Zhanke. Again, terrible. But I'm using the quote because I think it's a great quote. He says, "Every society, whether it's China or the US, is power-driven. Culture, and especially the arts, need to care about the disadvantaged people." Roll the intro.
One of the meat and my steamer is broke. Fuck the oblique and peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur, but my zen getting rolled at a turn of your words. One of the meat and my steamer is broke. Fuck the oblique and peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about.
Yeah, so I think that's quite an important point, particularly because I think art and media, what it's able to do is able to give a voice to the voiceless. It's powerful. It gives us the ability to be represented, or maybe represent a part of ourselves that we couldn't otherwise present. And so, yeah, I just think it's a really important thing to touch on. And something that I've noticed as well is that, I'm not sure whether there's statistical analysis on this or whether it's repeatable across a lot of society, but I'm willing to bet that there's a lot of people where if you grow up in a privileged enough position and your financial and kind of material needs are met, then you go on to become an artist, and that's not true across the board. I'm not even sure it's a pattern that I could emerge, but it's true for me. I grew up in a privileged enough position where the idea of studying film and risking my financial security by going into a very volatile and competitive market, it's not certain success. It's not nothing's guaranteed, and it's a risk, and we'll see how it pays off. And so we'll get cracking on this episode with starting how I'm doing. Recently, emotionally speaking, I've been doing quite well, I think I'm still kind of struggling with some of the anxieties of transition that I described in my previous video. And I don't think those will be fully quelled until the year's got cracking going and we're fully back in the swing of it, But at the moment I feel like I'm tailing off that quite a bit, and I'm feeling quite hopeful, feeling ready to engage with what's ahead, despite the fact that it might be difficult or daunting. If I'm speaking right now in this minute, I'm a little bit frustrated because there was a lot of calm downstairs at my house, and I told them I was going to come up and film a video, and as soon as I came up, they're playing loud music. I know they're just doing it to roll me up, but it's rolled me up, so if any of them care to watch it, they'll know that they got their goal. But it's not much to worry about. Luckily, we get on great, so it's not like I don't have any grievances about it. But safe to say, I'm going to be bitching and moaning about it to them later. But in any case, you might not even hear any of the music, and you might think that I'm, hearing voices, or I will have just brought down the levels of this audio. In any case, that's the kind of state of affairs of how I'm feeling right now. But to be honest, I'm glad that I'm getting on this train again. I need to just be recording videos, talking about how I am and talking about how I feel, because at the end of the day, that's me. That's what I'm doing. I think I stopped doing these videos for a long enough time to feel like it was okay to not be. When in reality, in my true heart of hearts, and in terms of what I want to be doing and how I want to be producing content, for me, this is like the centerpiece. This is the foundation, because I guess I struggle with a lot of stuff that's on my mind and I'm thinking about, and oftentimes I don't really have a good way of kind of expelling that or kind of putting a stop to it. Sometimes it just kind of cycles in my head, and I lie in bed just before I sleep and I think about stuff, and it's not even like I'm consciously doing it. It's just it'll pop up and it'll come back, and it'll be inane stuff, but it still lingers, and and the Decompression Chamber, when I do a video, when I upload it and it, it gets 9 views or 10 views if I'm lucky, I'm just glad having known that I've put something out there, and I've been able to talk about how I feel, because at the end of the day, when I talk about how I feel, I do a lot better. I think it allows me a moment to pause and reflect on myself and kind of do some of that introspective inner searching that is necessary for self-improvement. I think it's just a little bit helpful for my own emotional well-being, If I have to do a video about me talking about how I'm feeling, I actually have to think about how I'm feeling and process the things I've been feeling and be comfortable enough with those kind of conclusions to be able to present them to an audience, however small that might be. And if I speak about how little the audience is, please don't take that as like me being salty. I really care about all the people that are part of my audience, and I genuinely do try and make good content for you. I'm not trying to talk about nothing, even though that's kind of what this whole thing is. In any case, the wheel of time keeps spinning, and I recall I started this whole thing because I was concerned about how fast time goes, Just recently I told my younger brother he'll be heading off to uni tomorrow when I'm filming this, and by the time it's uploaded he might be there. I told him, enjoy first year, because before you know it, it's over. And it sounds like a silly thing to say if when you're young, that a year will go by fast. If you told me that when I was 14 years old, 12 years old, I'd think you were stupid. I think a whole year. From the end of this summer to the start of the next one, or even to the end of the next one, you think that will take so long. And the last year that I lived was the quickest year of my life. It passed by so quick, and it's scary. It's scary feeling time pass quicker when you have more to do, and you kind of suddenly get to the week, you go, whoa, fucking hell, it's Friday already. And I remember one time I was speaking to my dad, and my dad, it haunts me. It genuinely haunts me. He said that oftentimes he'll look in the mirror, and he's in his mid-50s, mid to late, should I say. Sorry, Dad. But he says to me that sometimes he'll look in the mirror, or one time he looked in the mirror, I'm paraphrasing, he'll see himself and be like, who's that old guy? Like, how did I suddenly get so old? Yeah, no, it's weird. It's weird to think about the fact that I'll never be young again. And I'm young now, but I'll never be young again. Yeah, it's only once. Unless you believe in reincarnation or some sort of cyclical life process, which I support, but I don't subscribe to at the moment. In any case, I'm only young once, and these kind of videos, the way I intended them to originally be, was sort of like a kind of a captain's log from Kirk, kind of like a situation report of what it's like to be me, at 21 years old, going into the third year of uni. Because if the internet lasts a long enough time, I can be old, and maybe it'll be a family member, maybe it'll be a descendant, maybe it'll be somebody who doesn't even know me, maybe it'll be somebody in a completely different situation who barely even knows the language that I'm speaking. But what I'm hoping is that they'll be able to watch this video all the way from the future, looking back into the past, and be like, well, that was what he was going through at the time, and maybe there's something I can relate to, or maybe there's something I can learn from that. Or maybe it's just, content for us to consume and not think about. But I genuinely hope that by creating these videos, I create some sort of space for, some sort of platform for these ideas that I present, ideas about, introspecting and being in touch with your own emotions, and thinking about kind of taking an inspectful eye on what you've been doing recently. And I guess that is more kind of at the forefront when I do them more regularly, because if I'm doing an episode like the previous one, where I'm catching stuff up on how we've been doing the whole last 3 months of my life, 3-4 months, it becomes more about things that I've done, and I think I've noticed that a lot in life. A lot of life becomes about talking about things that you've done. Oh, last week I did this, or I was there when this happened to this, and you can do a lot of bonding. You can kind of relate a lot to people. You can have fun conversations doing that. But I think what is missed, essentially, I think it might be a slightly masculine issue, is a I think the conversations that I'm part of don't often kind of arrive at the point of taking note of people's emotional state and how they're doing, and kind of sitting there and thinking genuinely about how we're feeling, or maybe I just don't do that enough myself. And so oftentimes I'll go on a walk by myself and I'll try and ask myself that, if it comes at the right moment, if I'm present enough to kind of pause and think, all those things that I'm thinking about don't matter. How am I? How am I really doing? How am I feeling? And I wonder to myself, just in this moment, by talking about it, whether I avoid that because I don't want to think about it, whether there are times where I'm so stressed, or I'm so sad, or I'm so, frustrated, or whatever those negative emotions are, whatever combination, I feel them so strongly and with an awareness that I don't want to confront them. I don't want to process them. Because I think in general, if I kind of be a bit candid, which, again, point of the show, I think that there have been a lot of times in my life where I kind of compartmentalize and I ignore certain emotions that I'm feeling or certain thoughts that I'm having, because I don't want to fully come to terms with the way I feel, or really accept that is the way I feel. I really won't get into the details of it because it's so complicated to explain on this video, and I don't really think it's worth airing out my dirty laundry in that sense on YouTube. But I went through a situation that was very strange, socially speaking. Somebody who I'm not really that close to involved me in a great scheme of lies. And when I found out, I was just perplexed. I was perturbed. I was just confused. And I don't think it was until I'd kind of rectified the situation from my part that I really came to terms with how stressful and how anxious that made me, and how not having a good solution to a problem is going to wear you down. It's going to, make you stressed out. It's natural. And that's just one small example. I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. I'm just trying to provide you with some evidence to one of these kind of patterns, and I just wonder why that might be, whether that's because I want to just march on with what I'm currently doing, whether I'm a creature of habit and I just want to stick to my habits, or whether I don't kind of give myself the credit to have the emotional experience or emotional intelligence to navigate those kind of more troubled waters, really. I think everybody watching this, everybody who I know in my life, will have some part of their mind, some part of their soul, if you believe it, that they don't want to explore because they're concerned, or they're scared, or it troubles them, and it impacts their well-being in a negative way. And I'm not here advocating for people to be doing that, to be exploring that, but I think that's still present within us. There's that kind of darker side to us that sometimes we don't fully explore. And I'm not bringing this up to say that we need to explore it, or we need to relive trauma, or we need to, focus on all the negatives. But I think just as much you can't ignore that stuff, because otherwise it'll come back to haunt you in some way or another. And so I asked myself, if these things that I think are true, why am I doing what I do? And I think if I can link this back to the original quote, which I don't often do, but I feel quite proud of myself that I've managed to find my way back, is that I think things like art, things like film, writing, poetry, anything that you might consider creative, whether it be sculpture or pottery or jewelry design, any of these things, I think art is kind of us trying to extract something from our soul that just words or conversations can't do, that physical actions in a pedestrian manner might not kind of be able to fully communicate. There is something within us that has something to say that needs a specific way of saying, and that's why I genuinely believe that everybody should be engaged in some form of creative endeavor, whether it be for professional reasons or personal reasons. I think the yin and yang of the human experience is creation and destruction, or consumption. I think consumption's more fitting, But I think we do a lot of consumption, we consume, but I think just as much we need to create, and both of those things have such wide implications, and I think everybody in their own terms would have to define what creation and destruction would have to mean, or creation and consumption. But I think for me, part of the creation thing is part of yourself, is creating a better version of yourself, or turning whatever version of yourself there is now into something better, and that can be a form of creation, or maybe it can be a form of consumption. You know, you're consuming your previous self and digesting that and reforming into something new, and yeah, again, that would be creating. But yeah, that's just something that I've been thinking about. Most of this thought process have just been completely on the fly, and I wonder whether I'll watch this back when I'm editing it and think, wow, he's chatting shit. But I think despite the fact that you can't polish a turd, there might be a singular grain of truth at the very center. Well, that's fucking annoying. Yeah, I guess that's gonna curtail the end of the episode. And yeah, I hope whatever you're doing, you find a moment to either reach peace or reach some sort of conclusion of self-truth, whatever that might be. Love you lots. See you later.
Get so off topic when topping the legs. It's a shame that I failed my bag, failed my mama, my papa, my grands. I'm trying to get back in the game, man. It's packing. I'm packing the stack on my own, cause the dash like I'm Gambit. I might speak some French on your ass. Guess I twang one step back. The meat in my steamer is broke. For the oblique turn peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur. My zen getting rolled at a turn of your words. Run at the meat in my steamer is broke. For the oblique turn peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur. My zen getting rolled at a turn of your words.